Lessons podcast, hosted by Angela Anderson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, Get Your Fucking Lessons People podcast. This podcast is neither a roadmap to success nor a comprehensive guide to enlightenment. It is a mirror held up to the human experience, reflecting back the messy, beautiful truth of what it means to be alive. It's a reminder that whatever happens in life, there's always a lesson to be learned. Why the expletives, you ask? Well, life is messy. It's beautifully, unapologetically messy. It is unpredictable, chaotic, and often just plain ridiculous. Life does not come with filters, and neither do we. Sometimes the deepest truths demand a little spice, and yes, that might mean dropping the perfect expletive. Here, nothing is off limits. We dive into it all from A to Z. So buckle up, my friends. I call it the alphabet soup for the bold. You're in for a ride that's real, that's raw, and maybe a little uncomfortable at times. But these lessons may not always go down easy, but trust me, they'll stick with you long after the last sip. For today's lesson, I want to talk about how our bodies are screaming and we're not listening. Mental health can make you sick physically. I've learned a little thing about body-mind connection and how ignoring your mental health can physically make you sick, and I want to share that with you. If you've ever felt like your body's been betraying you, you're in this unbelievable pain, but everyone's telling you it's all in your head, you're just trying to power through, then this lesson is for you. What I learned just isn't my story. It's a story about how our bodies try to save us when we refuse to save ourselves. I'd always thought I was in control, and in theory I was, but my body was screaming at me, and it took me almost losing everything to finally listen. This is a story of how I discovered my mysterious illness was actually a desperate message from my own mind. For years, I'd been to doctors who had no answers. Here I was in the best position in my life. I had a great salary, great home, my career had rocketed, I had good relationships with friends and family, but my body was in a full-scale rebellion. The illusion of control is what I had. For most of my life, I saw my body as a machine, a high-performance vehicle that I fueled with caffeine and ambition. I was a classic high achiever. My whole identity was wrapped up in long days and late nights and that pat on the back that came from blowing every expectation out of the water. Stress wasn't a problem, it was a feature. The pressure, the deadlines, that was the fuel that got me to the next level. I honestly believed I thrived on it. My calendar was the monument to my own productivity. My inbox, the battle I won every single day. I was successful, respected, or so I thought. It started small, a dull headache after a tense meeting or discussion, a bit of indigestion I wrapped up as a rushing through a late lunch, a consistent gnawing pain that I just ignored. This was a collection of symptoms: cramping, embarrassing bloating, a constant nausea. It was an unease deep in my core. I felt like if I skipped a meal, my stomach would churn with acid as if it was punishing me for neglect. At first, I did what results-oriented people do. I tried to fix it. I treated my health like a project at work. I bought a standing desk. I bought a juicer and drank green juice. I cut carbs, then dairy, then switched from soy to almond to coconut milk. I became an unwilling expert in diets, each one new strategy designed to fail. Nothing worked. The pain, it was unwelcome, an inconvenient invariable in my perfectly managed life. It didn't fit. High performers like me don't get taken out by a stomach ache or heartburn. So I did what many of us do best. I powered through. I got really good at the pain behind the calm expressions in settings that included others. I would press my fist into my gut under the conference table, trying to stop spasms, and blamed everything from bad takeout to a lingering bug to medication. I just hadn't nailed it down yet. The one thing I refused to even consider was the most obvious culprit staring me in the face every single day: my life. My project management approach to my health then accelerated. So I saw my primary care physician. I asked her to run a complete panel, every blood test imaginable, check everything. So she did. And then told me everything looked perfectly normal. I was furious. Not because she didn't find anything, but because I knew there was something. And it felt like I was being weak, like I couldn't handle the pressure I built my entire life around. Next came the specialist. First, a gastroenterologist. She was very thorough, methodical even. We did all the things: an endoscopy, a colonoscopy, the full invasive investigation. I remember waking up from the anesthesia so hopeful, only to be told, oh, everything looks pristine. No inflammation, no ulcers, nothing. But it was suggested, okay, well, maybe you have irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. To me, it felt less like a hypothesis and more like a label for when things are clearly wrong, but evidence is missing. So I was provided a pamphlet, tried this low sodium diet, accepted my faith, and I went home to educate myself on IBS. IBS is a disorder of the gut and brain interaction. Think of it like a house with a faulty fire alarm. The cameras show there's a fire, the gut's perfectly healthy, but the alarm system itself is hypersensitive, screaming fire at the slightest hint of smoke, like from a burnt piece of toast. That was my gut. The wiring between brain and gut was sending panic signs. The frustration was turning into this quiet despair, and I felt betrayed by my body and completely misunderstood by all the people who were supposed to have the answers. Months bled into years. I saw a nutritionist, an endocrinologist, even purchased hundreds of dollars in supplements that did nothing but lighten my wallet. Each dead end just chipped away at me. I was the person who could solve any problem at work, but I couldn't solve the basic one inside of me. The pain wasn't just physical anymore, it was emotional. I became irritable, withdrawn. Sleep wasn't an escape. I'd either lie awake with a racing mind or wake up in the morning in the middle of the night for no reason. I learned through a sleep study that I actually had wake apnea. Never heard of that before. Never was an issue for me, but it caused me also to wake up constantly throughout the night. And this was in my 40s. The drive that had fueled my career started to sputter out, replaced by deep, draining fatigue. I had spent my whole life being healthy. The worst part was the loneliness. When you have a mysterious illness, you're in this bizarre limbo. You know your pain is 100% real, but you look fine. Friends are all saying, but you look great. Have you tried cutting out wine? I felt like I was screaming in a soundproof room. My body was in a constant state of alarm, but nobody could hear it. No one heard the siren. I was either told the pain wasn't real or that I needed to manage my stress better. That suggestion to me was the ultimate insult. I wasn't stressed. I was successful. This wasn't stress. This was a disease. I just needed someone to find it. And then the turning point. My rock bottom wasn't some dramatic collapse. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I just left another specialist office with the same old story. All your tests are normal. Maybe it's psychosomatic. That word, psychosomatic. It always sounded like a polite way of saying you're making it up, or the less popular response, your ass is crazy. It felt so dismissive, but that day, completely defeated and out of options, I went home And for the first time, I didn't search for a new doctor. I searched for that word. And that's when everything changed. I fell down a rabbit hole of research on the mind-body connection. I found out that psychosomatic doesn't mean the pain is imagined. It means the pain is triggered by the mind but experienced by the body. Think of it like a computer. The hardware, my gut, was perfectly fine. But the operating system, my mind, had a bug. And it was running a program of chronic stress that was causing the hardware to glitch, and real error messages were being sent as real pain for me. It was a system malfunction. And so this is where my analytical brain finally had something to work with. I needed not platitudes, but a mechanism. The science gave it to me. It's about the gut and brain axis, which is the physical information superhighway between your brain and your digestive system. The vagus nerve is the optic cable to that network. It's not a metaphor, it's a physical wire. What happens in your head doesn't stay in your head. Your thoughts, your stress levels send signals down the highway like traffic directly to tell your gut how to behave. I started seeing thriving on stress for what it really was, a state of chronic activation of my sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response. That system is a lifesaver for short-term threats. But for me, the lion was always there. The 300 unread emails, the back-to-back meetings, the pressure for everything to be perfect. My body was stuck in fight or flight. Imagine your gut is a complex, bustling factory. The factory manager, your brain, is shouting emergency and pulls the alarm. That's the fight or flight response. If wisely shut down the main assembly line digestion to divert power from escaping the danger. But for me, that was always the case. It was always, my brain was in a constant state of panic, putting the factory in a permanent lockdown. The assembly line was always sluggish, causing backlogs and pileups, which I felt in bloating and constipation. The machinery itself became hypersensitive, so even normal operations felt jarring and painful. The factory walls started to weaken, and the wrong kind of workers began to take over. My gut wasn't diseased. It was a perfectly good factory being run in the ground by a terrified manager. This was my light bulb moment. My mind, in its effort to protect me from the threats of failure and not being good enough, had activated a survival mechanism that was now threatening my actual survival. The pain wasn't a random glitch. It was a message. My body wasn't betraying me. It wasn't trying to abort me. It had been sending polite emails for years. The fatigue, the headaches, the irritability. And I'd marked them all as spam. Now, it had finally picked up the phone and was screaming at me. So now realizing the why was one thing. Learning a new way to live was something entirely different. My lesson was that I have to rewire my relationship with my body, my work, and my definition of success. The first step was simple: track the data. As someone who loves a good spreadsheet, this appealed to me. So I started a journal to log my food and my pain, but also I logged my stressors. What happened right before a flare-up? A critical email from the boss? Was there a tense conversation with the loved one? You have a looming deadline? The patterns were so clear, it was almost funny that I'd missed them for so long. Next, I had to learn how to consciously activate my parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system. If fight or flight is the body's gas pedal stuck to the floor, rest and digest system is the brake. For many years, I'd only been using the gas. I had to learn deliberately how to take my foot off of the accelerator and gently apply the brake, signaling to my body that the crisis is over. I started with some simple breathing techniques, exercises, inhaling, exhaling. Doing this just for a few minutes can really increase that parasympathetic tone, signaling to the brain that the danger has passed. First, it felt silly. but I slowly began to feel the knots in my stomach to loosen its grip, even just a little. I also began gentle movements, not punishing gym sessions, but like things I did in the past, but simple movements like daily groundings, where I take off my shoes every morning and before my workday, and I walk barefoot in the grass in my backyard. The goal isn't to burn calories. It's just to clear and calm my mind to allow my body to process the day. Regular physical activity reduces stress and can really improve even bowel functions. I learned that. The hardest thing for me, though, was setting boundaries, because for high achieving, people pleasing people, no is a scary word. But I learned that every email does not need an instant reply, and I can stop answering my phone after 9 p.m. And it's okay to say I don't have the capacity for that right now. But I felt like I was rebelling against the person that I'd always been. Finally, I began to just meditate and learn to focus on the mind and the body connection. And this just wasn't about talking about my feelings. It was about learning how to feel those sensations in my body without judging. To notice that tightness in my jaw, or the grinding of my teeth, that tension in my shoulders, that first whisper from my stomach, and to see them not as annoyances but as data. It was like learning a language that I was born speaking but had forgotten. The healing wasn't a straight line still, because I am still healing. There are good days and bad days. Days the pain would roar back and I'd feel that old despair creeping in. But then the difference now is that I have a playbook. The pain is no longer a mysterious enemy, it's a messenger. A sometimes loud, dramatic messenger, but a messenger all the same. When it shows up now, instead of panicking, I've learned to ask, what are you trying to tell me? What boundary did I cross? Where am I not taking care of myself? Today, my life looks a little different. I'm still ambitious. I still love my work. But my definition of success has been absolutely rewritten. Success isn't just about what I achieve on the outside anymore. It is about internal balance. It's about ending the day with enough energy to actually enjoy life and not just collapse in a heap of exhaustion. The debilitating pain comes and goes. My stomach still talks to me, absolutely. It's my most reliable stressor meter. A little tightness is a gentle nudge to take a walk. A bit of that indigestion is a clear sign I've taken on too much and not necessarily food. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. It's the body's built-in guidance system, and it's here for us to listen to. And I want to hear it loud. I want you all to hear me loud and clear. If you've experienced this, you're not crazy. There is nothing wrong with you. We live in a culture that celebrates burnout and wears exhaustion like a badge of honor. We're taught to ignore the numb, to just push through. But your body is keeping score. Those physical symptoms, the headaches, the fatigue, the gut issues, they aren't signs of weakness. They're signs that you have been strong far too long. They're a desperate plea for rest, for boundaries, and for a different way of living. The journey back to yourself starts with a single question, one you can ask yourself right now and every day from now on. What has my body been trying to tell me? Take a moment. Really listen for the answer. It might be the most important thing you hear all day. If you've had a similar experience, or if this has sparked something in you, please share your story in the comments. These are conversations that are so important. And if you want to explore more about this journey of reconnecting the mind and body, please like and subscribe. Thanks for listening. This has been Get Your Fucking Lessons, people. I hope you got yours.